Lulu, I guess before we get to that, what's the story? What's the headline here in case our viewers are just learning about this right now?
Well, the story is that the world's largest gaming market right now is in absolute disarray because of this game freeze. It's been almost at least 4 months since the Chinese regulators have approved any new games at all. Insane to think that a market size this big with some of the world's biggest companies like Tencent and also NetEase and the chain reaction following this, because they're also distributing games from some of the world's largest developers like Activision Blizzard and also Nexon, Capcom. So a chain reaction in share prices that we're already seeing in the market. Tencent, for example, shedding $150 billion in market cap because of this game freeze. And from the looks of it, this cap is not going to let loose anytime soon. Right as of now, we have not heard of anything about regulators wanting to take new initiatives to actually loosen up this game freeze.
Right. So shares, as we mentioned here, of Tencent can't really catch a bid at the moment. Do we know why they've frozen these new game approvals? Because as you mentioned, Tencent went on that massive buying spree, and it's playing out now across that video game supply chain, if you will. So what's the issue?
What sources have said is that at the very top, you have a ministry shakeup where the government is combining a lot of its cabinets. And for the ministry that looks after radio and television, there's a lot of reshuffling going on there. Ministry of Culture and Tourism is going through a reorganization as well. So amid all these shifts, there's a vacuum in leadership. Bureaucrats don't want to take initiative or risks in times like these, especially with games that has a negative connotation in a place like China, where it's come down repeatedly for being criticized for inducing game addiction, for inducing violence, and also sometimes even running up against core socialist values. And that's why before all this leadership uncertainty clears up, no one's going to do anything, and that's clearly hurting the markets.
Yes, Lulu, that's what I was going to say. It's really this investor sentiment that you've got a government that can basically make or break a company if they come through with these regulatory, moves, regulatory setbacks in some sense. Well, you mentioned there, of course, the addiction. There's also been concerns raised that these games can lead to deaths in some instances. But when you look at the investor sentiment, you mentioned Tencent shares have fallen quite significantly. How much more negativity is priced in?
We're looking at a potentially even weak third quarter for now, because we're already midway through the third quarter and game approvals have not come through. It usually takes 2 to 3 months for a new approval. And as of now, we're looking at the slowest growth for second quarter earnings since 2015 for Tencent. Potentially, this is going to impact industry-wide companies industry-wide. And so you'd be looking at companies like NetEase and also Activision Blizzard, Capcom, all these companies that rely on Tencent and NetEase to distribute their games and generate a significant amount of revenue from China.